Welcome to the White Knight Theater, Episode 29, The Deceiver's Gift. So far, all the actions of the Special Task Force have been under the control of the murderer, to the point where even Han Hao let out a disheartened remark. During the review, Zheng Rihua's analysis of the murderer led Luo Fei to directly confront Han Hao's suspicions and also revealed new insights into the case. At 23:09 on October 23rd, the Special Task Force arrived at the Tianfeng Hotel across from the Deyi building. After questioning the front desk staff and reviewing the surveillance footage, the team quickly made a discovery. Around 8 o'clock last night, a man checked into room 614 on the 6th floor. After 3 in the afternoon today, he left the room and never returned, but he also didn't check out. The footage showed that the man's physical appearance closely matched that of the murderer at the crime scene, and the identity information he used for registration was confirmed to be false. Since the 6th floor was also the most advantageous location for observing the square, the suspicion around this mysterious man instantly soared to an exciting level. Luo Fei noticed Yin Jian's thoughts and quietly explained, "The murderer is meticulous. He wouldn't leave a conspicuous beard. Both the beard and the sunglasses are just tools to disguise his facial features." Yin Jian grimaced and, with a sense of frustration, tore out the page of notes, crumpling it into a ball. At this moment, Han Hao and the others were focused on other aspects of the footage. "Xiong Yuan, look at this frame. The man checked in with a suitcase but left empty-handed," Han Hao pointed out. "So, it's possible he might come back. All right, I'll arrange for people to lie in ambush around the hotel. We need someone in the lobby too. Yin Jian, assist Captain Xiong. The rest of you, come with me to check out the room," Han Hao instructed. The hotel staff brought the group to room 616. The Do Not Disturb light was on next to the doorbell. According to the staff, no one had been allowed into this room since the guest checked in. With increasing doubts, Han Hao's heart pounded with a mix of excitement and tension. If the man in room 614 was indeed the murderer, even if they failed to ambush him, the suitcase in the room would surely provide some clues. With this hope in mind, Han Hao asked the staff to open the door. The room was dimly lit, and everyone stood at the entrance, hesitating to step inside. A strange sensation suddenly washed over them. A very particular odor seemed to be emanating from the dark hallway. Though not overwhelming, the smell sent chills down their spines and conjured up terrifying associations with death and decay. It didn't feel like a comfortable hotel room, but rather a cold, desolate grave. Everyone instinctively frowned, and Mu Jianyun even covered his nose. What did he put in this room? He muttered. Luo Fei and Han Hao, however, were all too familiar with this smell. As criminal police officers, they had often worked in environments filled with this odor. In a sense, it was linked to death. It was the smell of a morgue, more precisely, the scent of formaldehyde, a common preservative. But why would such an odor be coming from a hotel room? With this question in mind, Han Hao stepped into the room first and inserted the room card into the slot. The lights dispelled the heavy darkness. The room was empty, but the suitcase left by the guest was on the bed, open, and the formaldehyde smell was definitely coming from inside. An ominous premonition began to rise in everyone's mind. They exchanged glances and quickly moved closer. Inside the suitcase, strange objects came into view. There were nearly a dozen large-bellied glass bottles, similar to those used in hospitals to preserve various specimens. Each bottle was filled with liquid and contained variously shaped objects. Mu Jianyun felt his scalp tightening. He fell half a step behind the man. "What are those?" he asked, but no one answered. Han Hao's face turned particularly gloomy. He put on white gauze gloves, picked up one of the large-bellied bottles, and examined it against the light. Zheng Rihua saw what was inside the formaldehyde and shouted in disbelief, ignoring his police demeanor. "It's a scalp. Damn it, it's a human scalp." Indeed, it was a piece of human scalp, complete with a small amount of hair attached to the forehead. As the liquid swayed, the scalp gently floated, resembling a bizarre, soft-bodied creature that had just been awakened. Mu Jianyun could no longer bear it and rushed out of the room, gasping for the fresh air in the hallway. Luo Fei's gaze lingered on the scalp for a moment before shifting to a piece of white paper stuck on the side of the bottle. It looked like a label with some handwriting on it. Han Hao had also noticed the writing. He turned the paper to the front, and there it was, a death penalty notice. It read, Death Penalty Notice. Convict Lin Gong. Crime, Bai Jiemiao rape case. Execution date, March 18th. Executor, Eumenides. The standard song typeface was unmistakable. Another death penalty notice. Zheng Rihua looked at the content of the notice with great astonishment, and Han Hao's eyebrows furrowed into a knot. Luo Fei glanced at the two of them, looking somewhat bewildered. So, Zheng Rihua explained to Luo Fei, this is one of the unsolved major cases in the province. It happened last year. I was the one who posted the internal police bulletin for assistance in the investigation. The suspect characteristic was a 5-centimeter long scar on the left forehead. As if to deliberately match Zheng Rihua's words, the scalp in the bottle now lay flat, revealing a long scar that was particularly conspicuous. The three of them suddenly realized that the scalp had been specifically prepared to display this scar. Zheng Rihua continued. He not only helped you solve the case, but also executed the notice. The word Lin Gang has been crossed out with a heavy line. Everyone who understands judicial announcements knows what this line signifies. Unlike Luo Fei's somewhat detached and mocking attitude, Han Hao's mood at this moment was extremely complicated. The line seemed to gape into a mouth in Han Hao's eyes, roaring at him with abandon. The murderer, whom the police had been desperately hunting, had solved a case that the police had not been able to crack. Wasn't this the most absurd and laughable thing in the world? Han Hao's wrists bulged with veins. He put the bottle back in the suitcase and picked up another one. This bottle contained a piece of human skin from the chest and abdomen. A bluish-gray bat tattoo on the skin was particularly eye-catching. Of course, there was also a piece of white paper on the outside of the bottle. A death penalty notice. Death penalty notice. Convict, Zhao Erdong. Crime, Dongyishu robbery and murder case. Execution date, May 11th. Executor, Eumenides. The same death penalty notice, with the same line indicating that it had been executed. Captain Han, isn't this the suspect from the Dongyishu robbery and murder case? Someone asked. We searched for that bat tattoo for a long time. Han Hao, of course, knew about the Dongyishu robbery and murder case, and he was also aware of the bat tattoo. He had spent countless sleepless nights with his team searching for someone with such a tattoo. Now that the tattoo was finally in front of his eyes, he didn't know whether to feel sorrow, anger, or relief. In the heavy silence, the formaldehyde-filled bottles were picked up one by one. Various body parts, fingers, ears, noses, etc., with the physical characteristics that the police had been desperately searching for, were displayed in turn. Corresponding death penalty notices, all marked with the line, were also shown, until Han Hao picked up the last bottle. This one contained half a tongue. The white paper outside the bottle read, Death penalty notice. Convict, Peng Guangfu. Crime, Shuanglas Park police assault case. Execution date, October 25th. Executor, Eumenides. Looking at the only death penalty notice without the line, Han Hao scene. Episode 30 of The Dark One, the execution videos. The special task force arrived at the hotel for investigation. Since the murderer had disguised himself, there were no clues to be found, except for the dozen or so large-bellied glass bottles left in the box. To everyone's shock, each bottle had a death penalty notice attached to it, and inside the bottles were the unique marks from the corresponding case's culprits. Luo Fei noticed the unusual expressions on Han, Hao, and Zheng Rihua's faces. He glanced at Zheng Rihua, his eyes filled with a questioning look. However, Zheng Rihua shook his head, seemingly not wanting to say more. Han Hao slowly placed the bottle back into the box. His movements were extremely solemn, making the atmosphere in the dim room even more oppressive. After struggling to control his turbulent emotions, he took out his phone and called Yin Jian. Hey, Yin Jian, call off the people lying in ambush outside. That guy won't be coming back. Upon hearing this, Luo Fei inwardly let out a bitter smile. Indeed, that person had already calculated that they would come to this room. Apart from what he intended to show them, there would be no other valuable clues to find. Subsequent developments confirmed Luo Fei's guess. The forensic team from the police meticulously searched the hotel room, but found nothing of value except for the box on the bed. No fingerprints, not even a single strand of hair. However, the box itself brought an unprecedented shock to the police, a shock that even surpassed the case itself. There were 13 bottles in the box, each with a death penalty notice attached. 12 of them had already been executed, while the execution date on the 13th was set for October 25th, the very next day. These 13 notices involved 13 major criminal cases that the provincial department had been supervising but had failed to solve. According to the notices, 12 of the suspects had already been executed by Eumenides. Body parts that reflected the characteristics of these criminals had been meticulously removed and soaked in formaldehyde to confirm their identities. Facing these 13 bottles, the police could only come to one conclusion. Eumenides had infiltrated the police's electronic system, found these criminals based on the relevant information, and executed them in his own way. Luo Fei fell into contemplation. Was he still helping us? It was absurd. He was alive, yet he was challenging the police in another way. The suspect that the police were tracking with all their might had single-handedly solved more than 10 cases that had plagued the police for years. This was an unheard-of situation, filled with both laughable and lamentable dramatic elements. In this scenario, the goddess of revenge, Eumenides, was blatantly displaying her terrifying power and detestable arrogance. Luo Fei and others had once doubted the authenticity of those notices, and the human specimens in the box could not fully confirm the issue. However, another item in the box left them with no room for doubt. It was a mobile hard drive from a computer. The most important content on the hard drive was a video that had been edited. All members of the Special Task Force watched the video footage together. The location of the video was a closed, dim, and dilapidated space. Due to the narrow scope of the camera, it was impossible to give a very accurate judgment of the place. A short and sturdy man was kneeling in the center of the frame, his hands and feet tightly bound, and his expression terrified. There was a scar on his left forehead. After a moment, another man in the frame spoke to the short and sturdy man. "What's your name?" "Lin Gang." "Lin Gang, what do you have to do with the rape case in Baijiamio village on August 3rd last year?" "That was me." "What were the characteristics of the woman I raped?" "There was a mole on her right breast, about the size of a chopstick head." "Good." A figure flitted in the frame, and the off-screen man seemed to walk behind Lin Gang and untie the ropes binding him. Lin Gang rubbed his sore wrists, looking somewhat dazed. His eyes moved, from which it could be judged that the mysterious man had walked in front of him again, and then he suddenly became afraid. A hand entered the frame, holding a blade between two fingers, its cold, light, and menacing. However, colder than the blade's gleam was the man's voice. "I'll give you one more chance. Get up, sit up." Lin Gang shivered, not only failing to get up, but also curling into a ball. The man seemed to hum in contempt, and then the blade slid out of the frame, emitting a terrifying and strange whistling sound. He raised his hand to cover something, but this action was only half done before he stiffened and fell to the ground. Although the frame was dim, a large amount of blood could still be seen gushing from his neck. Obviously, this video showed the execution process of the first bottle's death penalty notice. Lin Gang's description of the victim confirmed that she was indeed the perpetrator because the information he provided was extremely private detail. Even the criminal police handling the case might not know it, let alone make it up out of thin air. The executioner clearly understood these key points. In the subsequent videos, the execution processes of the other 11 criminals were also recorded. The man always asked some brief questions beforehand, but each question pointed to the most secretive details of the case, enough to prove the identity of those criminals. After confirming their identities, the mysterious man would untie the ropes of the criminals. "I'll give you one more chance," was his last line in each scene, but no one seized this opportunity. They didn't even have the slightest desire to do so. Once their hands and feet were free, they all shrank into balls like frightened sparrows, waiting for the fatal blow. These were 12 heinous criminals, guilty of rape, robbery, murder, and other serious crimes. However, in front of the mysterious man, they were so weak that they didn't even have the courage to fight for their lives. Although they were not present at the scene, everyone in the Special Task Force felt the extremely oppressive and terrifying power brought by that voice. Of course, these were not the entirety of the video content. The last segment of the video might be the most important thing the Goddess of Revenge truly wanted to show the police. The environment was still similar. A middle-aged man was kneeling on the ground, his face clearly visible to the camera. The off-screen man said to the middle-aged man, "What's your name?" "Guangfu." "What do you have to do with the armed robbery that took place at the Xianyan liquor store on the evening of October 25th last year?" "That was me and Chongming. We robbed a total of 24,000 yuan in cash. When we fled from the Xianyan liquor store, we ran into the police on night patrol. There were 2 of them. What happened next? The police chased us, and we ran into Shuanglis Park, where there were many artificial hills. We hid there and thought the police wouldn't find us. Later, we fired shots, and the police fired back. 1 police officer was killed, and another was injured. My partner, Zhong Ming, also died, right?" Peng Guangfu nodded in a daze. The off-screen man paused for a moment, then spoke again. "Do you know the names of those 2 police officers?" "I found out later from the newspaper." "Tell me their names." "The one who died was Zhou Su, and the one who was injured was Luo Fei," Peng Guangfu replied. Luo Fei, who had been fully absorbed in the video, was jolted out of his focus when he heard his own name. He turned his head and looked at the Special Task Force leader, Han Hao, in surprise. Han Hao clenched his teeth tightly, beads of sweat appearing on his forehead, his emotions seemingly on the brink of collapse. Looking at the others, from Yin Jian to Zheng Rihua, their expressions were a mix of anger, embarrassment, and sympathy. None of them looked normal. Luo Fei suddenly realized that Han Hao was the one involved in the police assault case. Such a case must have already spread throughout the provincial city. The other members of the Special Task Force were aware, but chose not to mention it, leaving only him in the dark. These thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. The next scene in the video quickly drew Luo Fei's attention back. The off-screen man's voice rang out again. When he spoke those 2 words, it meant his questioning was over. Then he still said, "I'll give you one more chance." Episode 31 of The Dark One, The Deceiver's Game. Han Hao, Luo Fei, and Zheng Rihua arrived at the hotel where the mysterious figure had once stayed. Inside the room, they discovered 13 death penalty notices, 13 bottles, and an edited video. The 12 suspects involved had already been executed by the Goddess of Revenge, and body parts reflecting their characteristics were soaked in formaldehyde inside the bottles. The group watched the video together. Just as the footage showed Peng Guangfu looking up blankly at the off-screen figure, the mysterious person's hand appeared in the frame. However, to everyone's surprise, the object in the mysterious person's fingers was not a cold blade, but a button-sized metal disc. The hand placed the metal disc into Peng Guangfu's coat pocket, explaining, "This is a location signal transmitter. I will hand this device over to the police." Peng Guangfu's eyes widened. Even as a criminal, hearing the word police filled his gaze with anticipation. "For me, this is a game. When the game begins, I will turn on the transmitter, and the police will know the location of the game. However, I will only allow the police to send a maximum of 4 people. If they follow the rules and ultimately win this game, you'll be allowed to leave here alive." The mysterious figure seemed to be walking slowly around Peng Guangfu, and his words seemed more directed at the people watching the screen. The members of the Special Task Force were all frowning and concentrating, carefully analyzing the implications of his words and the possible developments of the situation. Han Hao picked up an electronic device from the table, which was also found in the box. Now, they finally understood the purpose of this device. They had previously tried to turn on the device, but all they saw was an empty display. Clearly, the device could only function once the transmitter was activated. At this moment, the mysterious figure in the video spoke again. There's one more thing. As the words fell, the mysterious figure's footsteps stopped in front of Peng Guangfu. You are also involved, but I don't like it. I hope you don't leak any secrets that shouldn't be leaked. So we need to find a way. A horrified look appeared on Peng Guangfu's face. Meanwhile, in his line of sight, the hand reappeared in the screen, with the blade flashing coldly between its fingers. I won't say anything, I promise. I won't say anything, Peng Guangfu pleaded weakly, but he was powerless to change anything. The other hand of the mysterious figure entered the frame, pinching open Peng Guangfu's jaw. Peng Guangfu was forced to open his mouth wide, and his pleading turned into indistinct grunts. The fingers holding the blade probed into Peng Guangfu's mouth. Peng Guangfu struggled desperately, but the other's hand was like a vice, holding him immobile. With a muffled cry from deep in his throat, blood gushed out, flowing along the mysterious figure's fingers and out of Peng Guangfu's mouth. Although everyone watching the screen had anticipated what would happen, they still felt a tingling sensation on the back of their necks. Zheng Rihua even exaggeratedly swallowed his saliva, as if to confirm that his own tongue was still in his mouth. In the video, the mysterious figure released Peng Guangfu, who curled up in pain, opening his mouth and emitting a dry, hoarse cry. The mysterious figure then challenged the half-cut, bloody tongue with the blade, deliberately stretching it in front of the camera. Then, the mysterious figure shifted his gaze away from the camera and looked into the distance. This is your chance, whether you can seize this opportunity or not. Although he mentioned the word chance, his cold voice conveyed no hope, but rather a bone-chilling, deathly aura like a winter night. Amidst such a bloody close-up, the video finally came to an end. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, slightly shaking off the oppressive atmosphere. Then they all looked to Han Hao. As the head of the special task force and the person directly involved with Peng Guangfu, it was necessary for him to state his attitude at this moment. We are the 418 Special Task Force. The Shuangless Mountain police assault case doesn't fall under our jurisdiction. Our current task is to ensure Peng Guangfu's safety. I will meet the other party's demands and send 4 people to take on a challenge. The Special Task Force had 6 members, but only 4 could go. Han Hao would definitely exclude me from the action. At 11:05 a.m. on October 24th, Luo Fei appeared in the restaurant of the Criminal Police Brigade's guest house. He orders stir-fry and a bottle of beer, sipping it leisurely. Why is the food taking so long? Please wait a moment. It's coming right away. Waiter, bring a bottle opener. Sure thing. The execution time for the next death penalty notice, which was on October 25th, was less than 13 hours away. At this critical moment, the Special Task Force was in a state of intense preparation. Yet Luo Fei was enjoying an involuntary leisure because he had been excluded from the action by Han Hao. Since he had ample time and a relatively relaxed state of mind, Luo Fei could think more clearly about certain things. When Han Xiaoong was murdered, Luo Fei had seen the back of that person, and in yesterday's video, he had heard that person's voice. This opponent, whom he both hated and feared yet anticipated, was gradually emerging from the fog. With a strange sense of connection, Luo Fei felt his blood boiling as the other's footsteps slowly approached. He believed the other felt the same way. They were like the 2 sides of a coin, the positive and negative poles of a magnet. So similar, so attractive, yet each with completely opposing attributes. In their eyes, the image of the other was perhaps indescribable. The more than 10 demons punished in the video might be deserving of their fate, but the tragedy from 18 years ago was still like barbed wire wrapped around Luo Fei's heart. Every time he thought of it, it tightened, with the once intense love and hate still lingering. 18 years had not been enough to erase it. They were at the 2 ends of this emotion, and a simple anonymous letter was enough to pull the 2 of them back together from different times and spaces. Luo Fei had a premonition that he would soon face the other head-on. What would be the result of the collision between ice and fire? He couldn't imagine, precisely because he couldn't imagine it. he was even more eager. Luo Fei was so engrossed in his thoughts that he didn't notice Mu Jianyun walking up to him. Mu Jianyun had to speak up to remind him of his presence. He put down his fast food tray and sat opposite Luo Fei. "Well, Officer Luo, you're quite relaxed. I should thank you guys for keeping me so alert. You shouldn't blame me. I'm also excluded from the action team. It's because you have a more important mission. I didn't follow you. I'm here to eat too. I just happened to run into you." Luo Fei nonchalantly took a sip of beer, but his expression remained unchanged. Mu Jianyun had to admit, "All right, yes, Zheng Rihua and I have both investigated you. It's just our job. We're all police officers, and you understand. I can tell you frankly, neither Zheng Rihua nor I think you're the murderer." Luo Fei still didn't speak, but this time he raised his eyes and made eye contact with Mu Jianyun. Both were masters at reading each other's expressions. Luo Fei sensed Mu Jianyun's sincerity, and Mu Jianyun read Luo Fei's doubts. Since the conversation had reached this point, Mu Jianyun decided to be completely honest. He took out the MP3 player that Zheng Rihua had given him, turned to the relevant section, and pressed play. "Listen to this." Luo Fei put on the headphones, and he was immediately stunned, his face showing a complex expression of surprise and a sense of déjà vu. Episode 32 of The Dark One, The Origin of the Goddess of Revenge. With the emergence of a new death penalty notice, Han Hao established a special task force and excluded Luo Fei from it, which caused Luo Fei to feel a bit disappointed. However, even so, Luo Fei still had a premonition that he would soon face the mysterious figure directly. Just at this moment, Mu Jianyun appeared beside him. The new evidence he provided shattered the calmness Luo Fei had maintained. The recording Mu Jianyun played for Luo Fei was the one that had once been broadcast on the Provincial City Police Academy's radio station. The recording of a male student's diary. Luo Fei's thoughts were clearly taken far away by this recording. After the audio finished playing, he sat in a daze for a long time before taking off his headphones. By this time, his eyes and nose had become slightly sore, so he took a deep breath to suppress the emotion. "This is my voice, and I did do that thing. I know you didn't kill anyone. When I first met you, I was convinced of this because the sadness and hatred in your eyes are impossible to fake. But you must be involved in these matters. What exactly are you hiding?" Mu Jianyun tried to keep his tone gentle, knowing that he was touching on the most delicate secrets in Luo Fei's heart. He had to let the other person completely relax in order to succeed. Luo Fei controlled his breathing, allowing his mind to slowly cool down. Seeing Mu Jianyun's cautious demeanor, he suddenly felt a bit amused. "You don't need to be so polite. With this evidence, you can already initiate the formal interrogation process." This recording was analyzed by Zheng Rihua, and he handed it over to me. "Han, how does it know about this matter?" Although he sensed that Luo Fei had already given up resistance, Mu Jianyun's attitude and tone did not change. He wanted to continue delving into Luo Fei's inner world and make him let his guard down. "We believe you. Don't you trust me? I'm not investigating you. I'm just a friend who wants to hear your story. All right, you must already know that before the 418 tragedy, the name of the Goddess of Revenge had already appeared. As far as I know, within the police academy, for students have been punished by the Goddess of Revenge. A male student who cheated on exams, a female student who stole, a male student who liked to leak others' secrets, and a male student who was unfaithful in love. You have very complete information. Out of these 4 incidents, I was responsible for the first and third ones, while Meng Yun did the other 2. So it was 2 people. I've always wondered, no matter how capable you are, you couldn't have completed the case in the girls' bathroom. It turns out Meng Yin was also involved. Why did you 2 conspire to do these things? It wasn't a conspiracy. Meng Yun and I were competing. You might find it hard to understand the relationship between Meng Yun and me. We were lovers, deeply in love. But the deeper our love, the more fiercely we competed. We admired and respected each other, yet neither of us would give in. It's a very strange feeling that outsiders wouldn't understand. I understand. You understand. I read your files. Both of you are Scorpios. Two combative scorpions that get too close must bite each other until they determine a winner. Their struggle will only end then. Don't forget, I studied psychology. The influence of zodiac signs and blood types on personality is one of my favorite topics. Well, maybe that's true. We both wanted to outdo each other and never thought of giving in. Mu Jianyun saw Luo Fei's distracted look and felt a bit uneasy inside, so he pulled the topic back. Let's not talk about this anymore. You should quickly explain the whole story. That incident was actually my fault. At that time, the school was organizing a detective novel competition. Meng Yun, who usually had some interest in humanities, also wanted to participate. One evening, he told me about his idea. He wanted to create a female character who would punish those who had committed crimes but hadn't been punished. He named this character after Greek mythology, calling her Eumenides, the goddess of revenge. That's how the name Eumenides, the goddess of revenge, came about. What happened next? Later, Meng Yun asked me for some advice. At that time, I opposed setting the protagonist as a female. I didn't think much about it. I just felt that for the corresponding plot, a male character will be more realistic than a female one. As a result, we had an argument. I don't know how it happened, but the conflict in the novel transferred to the two of us. He thought I looked down on him, and I also got a bit angry. Later, we made a bet to put the plot of the novel into practice. I understand now. This is the competition you mentioned earlier. Ah, what a reckless youth we were. We agreed that the two of us would take turns playing the role of the goddess of revenge, while the other would play the role of the police. The bet would be decided when the police figured out the method of the goddess of revenge's crime. At that time, I was a top student in the criminal investigation major, while Meng Yun was just a psychology student. I thought I could easily beat her, but after 2 rounds, I only managed to tie with her. The 2 rounds Luo Fei mentioned clearly referred to the 4 cases that happened in the police academy. Thinking of the bizarre plots of the cases, Mu Jianyun couldn't help but ask, how did you manage to do that? Meng Yun's methods were beyond your guess, and your methods were quite magical too. Ah, can you reveal some secrets? These are secrets between Meng Yun and me. I only want to tell her. Mu Jianyun pouted, feeling not only regretful, but also a bit jealous. As he was speaking, Luo Fei sighed again. If I really had the chance to tell her, that would be great. But at that time, I just couldn't turn the corner and had to determine a winner with her. While I was planning the next move, the 418 tragedy suddenly happened. You probably know more about this case than I do now. You mean you don't know the details of the 418 case? I already explained it at the first meeting. That afternoon, I returned to the dormitory and saw the note Meng Yun left and the death penalty notice on the table. I was shocked. My first reaction was that Meng Yun, in a fit of anger, was going to target Yuan Jibang. So, although you were very nervous, you didn't call the police, but tried to get in touch with Meng Yun. Yes, Yuan Jibang's fickle behavior was one of the things Meng Yun hated the most. But I didn't believe Meng Yun would really execute the death penalty on Yuan Jibang. I thought Meng Yun would probably just subdue Yuan Jibang, give him a lesson, and then force me to admit defeat. After all, Yuan Jibang and I were among the best students in the criminal investigation major over the years. If Meng Yun really did what I said, there would be no doubt that she would take the upper hand in our competition. This was your thought at that time. So, when Meng Yun saw the death penalty notice, would he have the same idea? Would he think that you were going to target Yuan Jibang? I later realized this problem too. He might have thought so. Meng Yun was in trouble, so he obviously wasn't the one who sent the death penalty notice. You can imagine, that afternoon I hadn't finished work yet. Meng Yun arrived at my dormitory first. He saw the notice on the table and naturally thought that I was the one who sent it. So he didn't call the police, but immediately set out to find me and Yuan Jibang. The other day you asked me why Meng Yun believed my words so much in the cement pipe. It's because he thought that bomb was set by me. Right,